Welcome to episode 13 of Founders and Funders Australia. This week, I have the founders of LawMe, Daniel and Jordan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ray. Hey, I'm stoked to be here.
Excellent. Tell me briefly what LawMe is before we dive into your backgrounds.
So, LawMe is a platform which allows lawyers to build agentic virtual workers. So, we built a really great solution to allow law firms to really jump onto this AI agent space, which does automated work such as automated drafting, compliance, legal research, and all the really, tasks that take up a lot of lawyers' time. We've really dived into it and we've created a really good solution to help lawyers do what they want to do, which is practice the law.
Let's go back a little bit to your earlier years. How did you meet each other and what did you study in university?
Jordan and I both met at university. Very early on, Jordan and I became friends. I was studying IT and economics, and then Jordy was studying actuarial science and law. Yeah, we hit it off pretty well at university. So that was how we met. And yeah,
What were your first careers after your studies?
so I actually went traveling for a couple of years straight after university. I didn't want to get a job right away because, just studying really hard. But the first job that I got out was working for a boutique tech consulting company where I was doing a lot of data analytics and flying down to Canberra and doing, just the typical consulting work that, to get like really good experience doing like the data analytics, data processing. After about 6 months, Geordie also then joined the consulting company. So then this consulting
Mhm.
company ended up being bought by Minter Ellison. So Minter Ellison is obviously a very big law firm, top tier law firm within Australia. And then we ended up
Mhm.
working in the innovation team during this time. So mostly working on like innovative projects. Around that time, there's a lot to do with cloud infrastructure. But yeah, it was a really good time, great learning experience. And we got to deal with like massive contracts and, just a typical consulting route, which, yeah, Jordy and I were able to tackle these like big problems together. And yeah, it was a really good learning time. But then, after about 5 years working for in the corporate world, I wanted to see what it was like being on the product side. And so I ended up quitting just to work on my own things, my own ideas, just to learn a little bit more about how to, scale things out in a broader product sense. And yeah, I would pass it on to Jordan to explain his experience as well.
Yeah, so I enjoyed working at Minter Ellison. I think I was there for 6 years. And during that time, Minter Ellison was generous enough to help me get my PLT and my legal training done. And it was nice to work enough with some great teams there, working in some of the innovation department, looking at trying to build innovative data science solutions with my actuarial background for the legal industry. And while doing that, I got really passionate about the release of these BERT transformer models in 2019. So that kind of, and I saw there was a connection with data science and AI. So the intersections of like data science and AI law got me quite passionate about building a product. I had a similar interest with Dan around wanting to be part of a product-led business rather than services-led business. So I wanted to leave and explore that intersection of data science, AI, and law for a more product-led business. So that led me to quit and then start building a legal tech company.
So interesting because I remember that time, it was 2018, 2019. I was in Sweden and all the conferences that I went to were talking about AI taking over the world, AI being a threat to humankind. But it reminded me of high school where everyone's talking about something that no one has done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everyone's an expert, but no one can get into details of how it works.
because it's like one of those trust the experts paradigms. It's
Mhm.
like, because this stuff, like again, these transformer models came around 2019. And so to be an expert, it's quite a small window of time. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's one of those things where it's like people who are doing it are the experts. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of don't like, it's like almost like consulting where it's like you with a consultant, it's like grab someone's watch and then I'll tell you the time.
So you got passionate about this, a business to be in law and use AI. How did you build your first product? How did you fund it?
Well, I think during COVID, I was
Mhm.
iterating with a legal research product so that would leverage these BERT models. And so I was playing around with collecting Australian law and building this model. And then I parked that for a bit because work became too time consuming. And it became clear to me that I couldn't do both things at the same time. So I left. I started off building something called Contract Buddy that was looking at doing contract lifecycle management, but with a very data science centric approach. And then the large language models exploded, and I saw that the way of doing data science was changing. So I wanted to go and revisit this legal research tool through Help Me Find Law, where I was able to, with partnership with the Free Law Project and Court Listener, and with the previous work I've done on scraping Australian laws, I was able to build a Help Me Find Law, which was a Australian and US legal research tool that I took to market. And then what got a few sales with, started working with a couple of small base of law firms. And then I think I went to a hackathon at Stanford for the LLM and law hackathons they do, which are a great experience if anyone's interested. And kind of saw through working with people I was working with and what was possible that it was probably best to pivot away from competing in purely legal research and looking at solving problems for lawyers that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, which for not every area of law, legal research is. So for a lot of lawyers, the day-to-day work is more around stuff that Dan mentioned at the beginning around client onboarding, administrative automation, document drafting automation, first review, templating. This is the stuff that lawyers do more on a day-to-day basis versus things like legal research, which is
Mhm.
useful, especially in litigation, but it's
Mhm.
not something that is a day-to-day activity lawyer.
Yeah. That's so many questions there. So who were the end users of Help Me Find Law? Were they paralegals? Were they lawyers? Who did you build it for?
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think mistakes made with the first product was probably not doing those fundamentals around who I thought I was thinking from a product perspective, like here, I'm building a product.
Mhm.
Let's just take it to market. Let's release it on Product Hunt. Let's just see how many people. Let's make it. Being able to ask questions of the law would be amazing for everyone. So I kind of
Mhm.
made it an open-ended product that anyone could have access to. And then there was just a premium tier for people who wanted to get used to it. And then when I tried to do B2B sales
Mhm.
and then try and identify who to sell it to, then that kind of those fundamentals around understanding who your customer profile is and stuff became more important, because the customer profile for legal research within the legal, like selling to law firms, is really looking more at litigation lawyers around case law than one else.
Yeah, and so for people who are less familiar with AI and how it works with models, how was Help Me Find Law different than using a Google search to find law?
It was more about synthesizing an answer from a large amount of information. So it was when you have a huge repository of information, sometimes Google search can find you the information, but you want being able to actually find the answer to your question is what people want. And so being able to like look through this information, summarize some of this case, provide you, this is the actual principle here, and then provide the citation is a useful addition. You can see Google search has incorporated a lot of that into how
Yeah.
they search now. And
Yes.
that was another risk around competitive differentiation if you're just doing a web-based kind of RAG. Yeah. So, and there's also risk too around the hallucination and stuff like that.
Exactly. That was my next question is it seems so confident in so many responses, never giving you exposure to its level of confidence. It just always comes back with a very firm answer. And it's hard to know which ones are true ones. And that's what makes me focus a lot now on looking at the sources that it used for its answer. So then I'm fact checking it
So,
or
Yeah.
asking it to reconsider its answers or double check its own work, which seems a bit redundant
Yeah,
to
this
like
is
have to ask it.
a challenge as well. So lawyers as well have a very low risk tolerance. And so, this is a massive problem that Jordan and I have spoke like countless of hours, right? And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would have heard the news about people getting disbarred for producing documents which has just been
Mhm.
made up by the LLMs. That's always a very interesting thing. So, but as this
Mhm.
technology and the user experience improves, being able to understand what's true and what's not will become more obvious, as well as the accuracy rates will improve. So yeah, it's like it's been such a crazy past year, 2 years where so much development has gone on and so much excitement, but then obviously like trying to make sure that it's accurate and true is such a battle. Has been such a battle.
For sure. Yeah, that also justifies your pivot day-to-day activities that lawyers do. So tell me a little bit more about then your pivot and what did you build and how does it work?
I think the pivot is connected to the original product because once we're was doing some of those B2B sales, was thinking how can I incorporate legal research into workflows that would enable lawyers to do what they do. So if you take a typical process of reviewing a contract clause, you'd be looking at the contract clause based on like business requirements from the customer, and you'd also be trying to draft it in a clear, concise, and accurate way. But another part of that process is ensuring that the contract clause wouldn't be stricken down as being null or void because it breaches
Mhm.
any statutory rules.
Exactly.
And so with the legal research, but bringing it into a kind of workflow that would emulate the process a lawyer would go through when reviewing a clause, we're like, well, that's an interesting idea. Can we build on this? Can
Mhm.
we take legal research and bring it into workflows to automate some of the more day-to-day tasks that lawyers
Mhm.
have? And so that's where this idea of kind of workflows were built out. And from building out workflow, we built like a general solution to enable lawyers to build their own workflows out within our platform that they can then attach to their own AI employees. So they can delegate work directly to their employees. So give their employee access to their workflows, their templates, their document stores, and the applications they use, and let their employee go off and do some of the low level work that they might want automated within their organization.
Yeah, I've gone through this many times in the last 6 months with supplier contracts, with shareholder agreements, with contractor agreements on looking at damages, periods of restrictions for employees, and then working with a traditional lawyer who would then tell me that it can't be enforced in courts, and then him having to look up what could be enforceable in courts and just going into multiple iterations to being this would meet my business requirements, but also be able to be upheld at court. And I would
Mm.
much rather have sent this to an AI employee to help me draft these contracts that would be able to be held in court or like be retained.
Yeah, totally. Especially for even for just a first pass, you know what I mean? Just getting that initial first bit of advice to see what ballpark you're in.
Yeah. So that sounds like I mean, I would be a customer of this. How do you price the value or price this product given like it's something new to the market? How have you gone about in identifying the value that you can sell it for, the price? How do you package this up for customers?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there's ways that in which lawyers currently work around billable hours and
Mhm.
things like that. And I'm hoping that AI puts pressure on fixed price delivery for legal services a bit more so that the issues with the billable hours, sometimes it's hard to understand how much the time element of a work scales out. And if you can automate some of this routine work, sometimes you won't have blowouts on pricing how much human hours goes into a engagement when you have AI automating some of the legwork.
Mhm.
So when we price at the moment as a typical kind of subscription-based SaaS model, where we have both a usage component and a per seat-based pricing. And our goal is to make it easier for law firms to move to automate what they can and provide more clear clarity in their pricing when they charge users because they've got high levels of automation around some of this day to day.
Nice. And so I have so many questions there. How did you find your first customer? And the second question to that, if you remember, is do then law firms who are using your service then just add their margin on top of your AI agents and pass it on to their clients and they're basically a reseller of your service? How did you get your first customers? How does it change the structure of law firms? Or are clients skipping lawyers and just using your AI agents?
Yeah. So the first friends and family is where things start because there's trust. So
Yeah.
knowing people who were willing to join a pilot program where we'd work in the sandbox and explore what we can do for them is where we've started. And then With car, we don't look into how they on bill their stuff. I think that's up to them. I think where
Mhm.
our goal is to just make it easier for them to automate some of the stuff so they can ensure that they can get work, their routine work done for a certain amount of value. Like I know there's certain activities like conveyancing and stuff that are typically
Yeah,
fixed price, but they do blow out in scope sometimes just because of unforeseen,
for sure.
like human effort. And
Yeah.
being able to provide consistency in pricing because the high levels of automation is the goal.
Yeah, I've done multiple conveyances, and I'm surprised it's a fixed amount, and I often just thought it's fixed because it's way beyond what their costs will be, so they just have so much margin, baked into the price. But I guess there's times when there are exceptions that have blown out their profits, or they become less profitable per hour.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you see this changing the landscape of, like, in the next several years, the legal practices with your
This is going to
solution
change.
in the market?
Yeah, so this is going to change a lot how people are just going to be interacting, not only in the legal services but in the industry wide. It's actually amazing and so exciting to see all these AI agentic frameworks coming into play. In the short term, I think that it's just going to be a lot of understanding about how to again go back into the pricing thing. So the billable hours is going to have be rethought by a lot of businesses, because as this AI agent type work gets into the mainstream, the consumers are going to understand, like, hey, hang on a second, like, why am I getting billed out in multiple different areas where it should be automated? But I think
Mhm.
then from a lawyer's point of view, the work that will change is they're just going to be able to get things done a lot quicker. So going back to the conveyancing, a lot of deals, are at risk if things aren't quick enough. And so having these automation capabilities to ensure that these deals can get over the line quickly is going to give a lot of, what would you call it, satisfaction for the clients. And it's just going to be a lot easier for law firms to give guarantees about like speed and things like that. So that's going to be really nice. And just drafting as well. People are going to enjoy their work a lot more because I don't know about you, but if I get a draft, an 80% draft, and I can, edit it, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable for me to be able to do that than, sometimes
Mhm.
creating a draft from scratch. So I think like staying in that flow state is really something that I've been enjoying lately using the tools. So it originally first started because I do a lot of software development as well. Being able to stay in a flow state within work, especially in coding or drafting or whatever you do, is the key of enjoying your work, right? And being able to have these processes to automate the
Mhm.
things that you typically would take you out of that flow state or the critical thinking type mindset is just going to allow people to stay in these mental rhythms and really dial into their work. And then hopefully, you can be in that deep state for longer and really pound out like 4, 6, 8 hours of like deep, hard work and then have the rest of the day off and know that you've just completed it and enjoyed the work that you're doing. So we're aiming for this to really revolutionize what I know it will be like just the AI agents and AI automation. It's not only law, but the whole world. And hopefully
Mhm.
it'll help people to enjoy their jobs a lot more because I know it has made my job
Yeah.
more enjoyable.
When you talk about flow state, you can tell that you're a surfer or you've surfed. I also surf. In fact, I had a difficult week this week that I went to the ocean just to be more present. And when you talk about the removing the tasks that are very simple but arduous, I think about that when I'm drafting my emails, when I'm negotiating with people or scheduling things, is I often dump my thoughts unstructured and get it reformatted into a draft. And I'd rather spend the time polishing the final message than sitting down and crafting that message from scratch, from like my thoughts to sentences and checking everything. And just getting 80% there and doing the final 20 is way more rewarding than spending all your time doing very mundane tasks. Yeah.
It really is. That's a key differentiator as well. So it's like if you're building out something, like getting the first 80%, most people can get there, but really putting your secret sauce on some of these things is the final thing, which is really going to get your firm over the line for a particular deal or something like that. So like you can really add your flavor to these documents in that last 20%. And that's really what is you, right? And that's your personality. And if you can spend most of your time in that final 20%, giving people who you are and what your skill is, then that is our aim. Like we can get you really quickly to that 80%, and then you can really dial into what your product is and tweak it in that final 20%.
Yeah. And you'll have the energy to give your best because you haven't spent it on these simple tasks all day or the less creative tasks. I see a big difference in the next couple of years, being able to have more delegation to automation. How did you get your first non-friends and family customers? That's often the most challenging one after you've built something, you've tested it, it's valuable. But in a B2B sales world, I often rely on partnerships who have an existing network of customers. What did you do to find the next set of customers for your service?
It was referrals. So
Yes.
once we
Nice.
proved from a friends and family customer, then we got a referral list from them that we hit up.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's I think with law and these professional services where businesses are tendering in trust,
Hmm.
that you need to come in from a connection or something where you can
Yeah.
provide trust through your network, because the people go to a lawyer or accountant or another professional services when they have a problem. And due to that nature, people who work in this profession are used to providing a layer of trust to their customers at all times. And so I think there's some hesitance for some of these organizations to work directly with startups unless they have some kind of situation in place where they know that through some kind of referral network or through some community that they can see that they've kind of developed some degree of trust or relationship with this person.
Yeah, I see that. The lawyers in the past and accountants who I work with have all been through referrals of people who I trust have gotten further in their life with more complex problems. And if they're good enough for them, they're good enough for me. And that's how I picked them, because I would rarely go look it up on the internet or Google search one. I think I got desperate once because my accounting practice got bought out and they were restructuring and I just wanted to make a change. I ended up using a Google search and I read as many reviews as I could, but ideally from someone in my network that I trust to get especially these professional services.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So you've already built your product. What's next for you? What did you need to start the company to build your first iteration? Is it expensive to start building a service like this?
Google Cloud credits were vital. So thank you, Google. So being able to cover those infrastructure costs were great. We got into a startup program with them, and then we just built it. So capital would be nice, but I think building it lean was enabled us to kind of think about what we really do need and what we don't need. So with bootstrapping, it's both a pro and a con in a way.
What's in store for the future of LawMe? What are the next set of features that you see important to market?
Good question. So we are essentially just dialing into like what's really good is that we're able to leverage the latest and greatest tools. We have the ability to implement, we're model agnostic. And so as these AI tools get better and better, we also improve as well. So a lot of our work is making sure that we are positioned in a way to capitalize on these tools. And if you're in the space, you just know how amazing it is. Like all like the open source work, all of the,
Mm,
updating of like the actual like Claude, OpenAI, like Google, Gemini, like, all of these massive companies, as well as these smaller teams, like doing open source stuff, building incredible stuff. And so we're just trying to make sure that, or we are making sure that we are building our product in a way which is going to leverage these technologies. And so as like, the visual language models are getting better. We're incorporating those. And really also our short midterm is just dialing in what the customers really want. A lot of people don't know how much of their work can be automated. And, some of them want to be, so it really depends on, the clients. And so, it's a really exciting space.
Yeah, and just on that, I think some of our product roadmap, what we're looking to release within the next 6 months, would be looking at how we can incorporate deep research style functionalities with legal our laws and case law data sets
Hmm.
and within your own custom data set. So within our tool, you can upload your own custom data set, and we're looking to have that sync with your SharePoint or sync with your Google Drive. So all your internal documents are available by our AIs. And then integrating our laws database with that data set and providing a deep research capability so that you can get really detailed research over your internal documents and the case law and legislation to answer some of your questions. We're looking at browser automation tooling so that we can automate more workflows for users that require them to log into different applications that we don't have integrations for. And we are looking at building in triggers and stuff to enable our virtual workforce to operate in the background while you sleep. So being able to automatically respond to emails and stuff without you having to trigger it.
Nice. So it sounds like it's been a pretty smooth ride. What were some of the biggest challenges or setbacks that you faced along the way, if any?
Yeah, there were a few challenges. A lot of it was mostly around, market fit, like the product is amazing, right? Like the tool sets that are there, but understanding how the customer like would understand again how to implement it into their business is a critical thing. Like an education component was very challenging. So because a lot of people are unaware of AI, a lot of people are scared, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make people excited and happy and really show them and demonstrate, hey, this is revolutionary. And doing that is a massive challenge. So finding that initial product fit, the ideal customer profile, and like the buyer profiles associated around that was definitely the earliest challenge I feel that we had. Leveraging the tool set now that we have in AI and a lot of the tech tools, our tech stack allows us to really have an amazing product with such a small team, which wasn't possible 5 years ago. So we're really lucky to be in this space right now. So more of our challenges around education and ideal customer profile stuff. That was our initial challenge.
I find for me in Australia running a startup, one of the most challenging things is finding headcount or technical resources, good engineers to help out.
Mm.
How have you grown the company, or what does your team look like who's building the product? And did you have similar challenges?
Yeah, well, I think we got lucky with the Stanford LLM hackathon.
Yeah.
So made some great connections with some really friendly, nice engineers there. And so when we've had to look at the moment, the majority of the products look like us, but if we had to get some help on certain things to help us, we kind of tapped into that resource there. So yeah, that's been a bit of a godsend.
Yeah. Nice. And for me, I'm doing a capital raise right now. Are you planning to raise capital? And if so, what are you planning to raise and for what purpose?
At this stage, we're trying to, we're lucky in the sense that we had the technical capabilities to build a product out where we didn't need funding. And we are looking to raise later down the line, but we also want to make sure that we raise at the right time. And so it is just something that is obviously forefront of our mind, but the timing is a critical component. We are scaling out our products at the moment, and that's our primary focus. And then once we feel like we're at that really critical stage where it's like, we need this money now, when we get a good, and we have been speaking with VCs and doing all the funding stuff, but yeah, we have the luxury of being able to build this out. So yeah, Jordan probably can talk a little bit more on that as well.
Yeah, I think Dan covered it great. I think strategically with funding, it's maybe a year ago, probably would have been more optimistic. But now that we've built so much of the product, sometimes it's like, well, I don't know if we'd like to test out the growth at the moment until we
Yeah.
need some funding for the next stage. And so I think that's where we're sitting. It's like we're definitely interested in talking to people about funding, but it's no point if you inject capital, hire a new person to build something that isn't the right thing that this person wants. So, and
Yeah.
we don't need to build something. We don't need another person to help build something given the kind of capacity that we're at the moment.
How do you sell your product currently? Is it mainly through the referrals still, or do Do you have sales staff that are going out? It doesn't sound like one, you said, in an industry that lends itself to having salespeople. So how do you grow sales besides waiting for referrals?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And this is why, again, we're so lucky to have the AI tool set that's available right now. You can build massive companies now. You can get huge annual recurring revenue with such small teams because of all the tool sets that are
Yeah.
available, like data enrichment, things like Apollo, like even LinkedIn Sales App has got great AI capabilities. And there's a lot of like automation tools that allow us to be able to get really good lists. And yeah, at the end of the day, LinkedIn, doing videos, cold calls, just the classic sales stuff, really. So yeah, we're working obviously really hard all around the clock. We're doing, yeah, mostly LinkedIn outreach and cold calling is our path for sales outside of our pipeline for sales outside of our referrals. But we also still have the referral system as well. So we're just trying to, yeah, leverage all things. We're not on like Instagram or anything yet, because we're obviously focusing on like B2B. So we found that LinkedIn and partnerships as well. So we're doing like integrations with bigger firms and then leveraging them. We've also got an exhibition coming up. We're in the Legal Tech Conference 2025 based in Sydney. So there's going to be 250 partners there. And so just attending these events and, you know, doing the face-to-face, getting people, like meeting people, chatting with them, just doing the networking thing, you know, that's typically how we've been selling.
Excellent.
On that. Okay. So I think Dan and I have found that branding and distribution matter around doing this outbound sales stuff. Because I know in the Help Me Find Law days, I got some aggressive no's on some of the stuff around when I was doing some outbound sales. And once we've developed a bit more of an online presence through strong branding around websites, stronger marketing material, developing a bit more of an industry presence by attending industry events and meeting with key people in industry, these outbound processes start to become a little bit more friendly and higher conversion rates than it was when you're just a startup starting up with minimal branding. So it's one of those things where branding does matter. We believe distribution matters too, being able to hack distribution channels through partnerships, getting on app stores of companies that have bigger audiences than you is great. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of the lessons learned along this process is sometimes that I think as Dan says, AI doesn't just sell itself. You do need to create the branding and find the distribution.
I totally agree. And so we're coming up to the end of the episode. For those startups or people wanting to start their own company, what advice do you have for the next generation, the next set of founders in Australia?
So it's absolutely amazing. Again, like you can build up these products so fast now. And I would focus definitely on, you know, finding the product market fit. You can have an amazing product, but if no one's willing to spend money on it, it could be just, you know, you could be going down a road which might not be very fruitful. So you really should just be talking to people. What are their pain points? Really discovering like what do people want right now? And if they're feeling pain, then there could be market. But if one person's feeling pain, not everybody's feeling pain. So it
Mhm.
is just, you know, getting out there, talking to people, making sure that people aren't just telling you, hey, yeah, it's a great idea. You should go do it.
Mhm.
Truly understanding what people want is critical these days because the ability to create these products now is easier than ever. So you need to make sure you differentiate yourself by really understanding what people want because that's going to be the secret sauce. If you understand what people want better than another company or your company, then that's going to what set you apart because at the end of the day, building the tech now again is easier than ever. So I'll just really focus on that product market fit. And then again, as what Jordy was saying, like branding and distribution is super important, like the trust aspect. Depends what industry you're in, obviously. It's very important for us in the legal space, building that trust. But again, if you can, yeah, obviously leverage networks and people that, you know, will give you that leverage or that branding sort of distribution is going to be very, very handy for small businesses.
Yeah. Jordan, do you have anything else to add on lessons for the future, for the next generation?
Yeah, don't skip over the fundamentals. I think as in the business fundamentals, the identifying the ideal customer profile, understanding the go to market, but what does that mean? Like, as in, how will you break people, like the existing distribution, to get yourself in a position, especially in a crowded market? I find some of those questions, I think you can focus so much on the technology and think the technology will just sell itself.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to learn more about LawMe or get in touch with you guys, what's the best way for them to reach out?
The best way to reach out, it depends on your preferred platform. Always open to chatting on like LinkedIn. Send us a follow on LinkedIn. You can always sign up for an account as well on our website at lawme.ai. And yeah, so email us, all the traditional avenues for signing up or LinkedIn. More than happy to answer any questions. I'm really passionate about this space and AI. And if you have any ideas or maybe you want to implement something yourself, again, I'm here to help. Even if it's just a call chat, I'm always open to speaking with anyone who would love to understand more about the space, because yeah, we're in the thick of it. It's consuming myself and I'm just like, yeah, I love it. So yeah, happy to speak to anyone who's also feeling the same.
Excellent. I will put in your website and your LinkedIn details in the show notes. So thank you very much, Jordan and Dan, for your time today.
Thanks, Ray.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.